Thanks for joining me for the Retail Initiative podcast. I am excited that you're here. And today's a special one. Today I have Jordan Dottley from West of 55. Jordan, it is so good to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I'm a little nervous, but I'm really excited.
There is no reason to be nervous. So before we get into it, tell people listening, what is West of 55?
Oh, man.
What's the business you own?
West of 55 is a women's boutique. I have 2 locations and an online store. It started out as a dream, probably, I would say I was 14 or 15. Funny story, whenever they do your most likely to's in high school, my most likely to was to open a store on the square in Oxford, but I only made it in Oxford for 2 years before I left and went to Starkville. So go Bulldogs. But growing up, my mother always took me shopping for back to school, and she would take me to New York or Memphis or just, somewhere really fun and different. But we always struggled going together because we could never shop in the same store. So it's we would go to one store with her and I would have to sit and wait on her. And then she'd go with me and she would have to sit and wait on me. And I just always wanted to offer a place where mothers and daughters, or even a grandmother, they could come and they could come and enjoy the experience together. So that's where West of 55 came from. And right now we're only in Mississippi, but honestly, I would love to have multiple stores in multiple different states, but we're just not there yet. So maybe one day.
Yeah. So when you got the idea for the store, what was it that made you actually pull the trigger and open a storefront?
That took a really long time. I come from a really successful father, and he started his own business and he was an entrepreneur, but he never really understood anything about women, clothes, fashion, how much women love to shop. And for years he would always be you can't make any money doing that. Don't do that. That's just a dream. It's not something that you do. And so I went and worked for him for 4 years, in my later 20s. And I didn't enjoy it in a sense that I had no passion for that. I couldn't, nothing about it registered to me besides the people aspect of talking to people and that. And so I finally was I'd rather be poor and happy than successful and unhappy. So I decided I was just going to go for it. I think my mom was just as excited as I was that I was finally deciding to do it, but I was really scared of the storefront aspect. So I was I'm just going to do online only, went to market, bought all the things. And I could totally be wrong. I feel you're either really good at storefronts or you're really good at online. I find it really hard to find people that just are dialed in at both and they're so phenomenal at both things. So storefronts are my thing. I love a storefront. Like I said, I would have 10, 15, 20 if I could. But yeah, I just decided I was going to do it one day. And then, God, the storefronts, that's just a whole different crazy story in itself, how I ended up with 2 so fast, but
Well, how did you end up with 2 so fast?
Going back to my father being you're not going to make any money doing that. He so kindly built me a commercial building to put my store in. And about 6 to 8 weeks from completion, a straight line windstorm came through and knocked out the whole north end wall of the building.
Oh my God.
So, I cried for a few hours and I was okay, got to pull your pants up or pull them up by the bootstraps, whatever that saying is, and figure out how you're going to pivot and reroute this, because my whole store was in my house and I had I think Bodie was 2.5 at the time. I had boxes of clothes everywhere. My point of sale, I had everything just in my home waiting to move into the store. And I knew we were going to battle with insurance from the minute that the guy came out, which they came out that day. And I drove out probably 15 miles away to another area called Flowood, and another store had just moved out. And, this space was already relatively built out and it looked great. And we could do some minor changes just to get me out of my house at the time. It was never the plan to have 2 at that time. So we leased this space. I paid them with cash for a year in the middle of COVID in 2020, June of 2020.
Oh my God.
No, it was actually May of 2020. Let me take that back. And I was like, I'll give you this for a year, which was way less than what they were taking at the time, just because no one was renting. And we did minor changes, and 2 weeks later we moved in and we opened my first store like that.
Wow.
And I didn't even, all went so fast. It's like, I didn't have time to like second guess anything. Cause like, I didn't really feel like I had another option. And I remember, I mean, you'll hear me talk about my parents a lot because they're such a huge part of my life. You know, I love them so much. My mom's like, what are you going to do with 2 stores? Like, what if this? And I was like, I don't know. I guess we'll just figure it out. If I have to have 2 for a little bit, like I'll just have 2. Like I've got to get out of my house though, because I'm sitting on thousands of dollars worth of inventory that's going to be out of season, out of style. So opened Flowwood, just ended up with such an amazing team at that time. And then 8 months later, we opened Madison.
Wow.
And maybe not even 8, it might have been 8 or 9 months later, after insurance, everything, we had to rebuild certain parts of my store that was almost completed, fix the wall, everything. So that's how I ended up with 2. And that was in 2021. I had 2 stores and I've kept 2 since then. And I would love, like I said, I'd love more. So.
That is great. Now I hear from a lot of people, like going from 1 to 2 is not like twice as hard. It's like 10 times more challenging just because you have the operational pieces.
Yeah.
If you could go back and communicate to yourself like some of the lessons you've learned, what have been some of the big things you've learned that now are making business easier that you almost wish you knew earlier?
I think, honestly, Josh, I don't know like what the big thing that I've learned is. I think what I've always been aware of is how important your people are. And I've always, like I said, I've been so fortunate that God has put the absolute most gems of human beings in my life and in this business. Going from 1 to 2, I would definitely say like have structure, but then it's really hard to have structure because you don't know how it's going to go day to day from one store to another. I would just say try to find some kind of like structured chaos, but it's okay if everything doesn't go perfect all the time. Like that's just not possible, and to not sweat the small stuff. And I would tell anyone, if you're going from 1 to 2, love your people and treat them well, because you can't be 2 places at once. So if you have good people in place, then you don't have a lot of worry with 1 to 2. And make sure that you always have inventory coming in, that you're not ever just sitting on dead inventory. I think I actually had talked to Mary Lynn Grebe like way early on, like I couldn't afford her, but a lot of things that she said kind of stuck with me. Like, you make your money in the middle. Don't sweat the last 1s and 2s. Going from 1 to 2, keep a steady flow of income, keep a steady flow of inventory. Don't just sit on dead inventory thinking, oh, if I restyle this, I can move it. Just get rid of it and move on with your life. And I think you'll find a lot less stress that way, not just having racks and racks of just dead inventory.
Yes.
But really my one big thing is always going to be love your people. Like don't sweat the small stuff if they make mistakes. Like just love them and watch them love your business. That's really all I've got for that.
Yes, I love that. I think that's one of the hardest things for most entrepreneurs is like really making room for your team to mess up. Knowing It's not because they're dumb. It's not because they don't care. But sometimes it's so hard when it's like, well, why don't you love this thing as much as I do? And it's like, they love it as much as they should.
I feel like they do if you love them. And I see a big disconnect though, is people expect A, B, and C from employees, but like, are you giving them A, B, and C? Are you loving them? Are you giving them grace? Are you appreciative? Like, how do you show that? Do you check in with them, or do you just expect them to come to work and do their job and go home? Because as women, we're the emotional connection. So like, are you offering that? Is this a safe space for your employees? And in a sense that they do feel like it's okay to mess up, because if they're always, uptight and scared, then they are going to make more mistakes because they are so uptight. I think I'm 38. My closest employee to me, I think, is 9 years younger than I am. I mean, I remember being that age. Like, what was important to me then? It probably wasn't going to be my job.
Yeah.
But I feel like if I can love them where they are in life, then that's the better job that they do for me. But I also, I really grow to like love these girls. Like, I love them so much. But I think there's a lot of room for employers to grow in that field, that you don't just expect people to come to work and like do a job and pay them, and then they're supposed to give you 150%, because are you giving them 150%?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just, I feel differently a lot of times about the people that work for me than I see, in some of these groups and things like that. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's trying to get away from it being purely transactional of like, I pay you this and therefore you do this, which, yes, like that is an element of employment, and that
it is.
And that's okay. But the thing that really creates buy-in, where your team like wants to do these pieces, isn't going to come from the transactional side of things.
No.
It's going to come from what you're talking about. And so how do you balance that, that like, okay, I love my people, I love my team, yet you got to be their boss.
With this, and I'm so bad at it.
You got to be their boss. Like, what does that look like for you? And I know perfect here, but what does that piece look like for you?
I really do struggle with that. And I think this goes back to what I was saying. Like, it has to be really bad for me to get mad, like a continuation of things, or for me to get upset. Like, I always say we're selling clothes, we're not saving lives. So I don't know. That's like the one thing I can't really answer, because I really struggle with it. If someone's on their phone too much, though, I feel like, yes, I can call them out individually, but there's 14 of us, 15. So I feel like that's just a good reminder for everybody, like, hey, stay off your phone. I don't know. I mean, I just implemented a point system. That's what one of my friends does, but she's like 80 something employees. I'm bad at it. It just is what it is. I'm bad at being the boss and being the friend, but I really don't have to boss that much, because they all come to work and do what they're supposed to do relatively. So I don't feel like I have to like boss a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense. I'm just like, they usually
totally makes sense.
They come to work, they do what they're supposed to do. I say we love from the inside out, and I feel like that really translates into them doing their jobs and how they interact with customers. Like, I mean, there's only been a few times that I've really been like, okay, like this isn't going to work. But usually I end up having to let someone go if it gets to that point, which, I mean, that's only happened 3 times in 5 years. So, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. No, that is so good. To me, it's like the difference between, like, I'm thinking of my relationship with my kids, right? And like, there are times when it's like I want my son to live up to something.
Yeah.
And rather than like encouraging him up, it's like I set a standard that he needs to reach. And when I take that approach, all the time, he's just like, yeah, whatever, screw this. But when I like encourage him that he can live up to something, he receives it so much better than when I just set this standard and remind him every time he doesn't live up to it. And so you mentioned earlier, like, people are good at stores or they're good at online.
Yeah.
As someone who helps brick and mortar retailers get good at online, I do believe you can be good at both.
You can be. I just mean like a master.
Yes. Typically, I think there's a natural skill set. And a lot of times when I talk to people that are great at online, like the idea of a storefront to them is like, how would you ever? Yeah. And then the same thing with brick and mortar. There's like, how do you do it? And that's where people like us come in. So were you online this whole time, like right when you opened, or what did that look like?
I was. So I started online, was doing things out of my house. And here I go talking about my parents again. My mom had built this gorgeous barn on my parents' property. It's just beautiful. And it was empty at the time. And deep down, like a storefront is what I wanted, but I was just really scared. Like no one's going to come. The community's not going to support me. There's enough stores here. So she had an idea. She was like, why don't you just like do a pop-up in my barn? And I did one and like people came and I was like shocked because it's not on the beaten path. Like it is outside of town. I mean, it's next to like a big neighborhood, which I live in, but still, I mean, you have to like make an effort to come to this barn. And like people started coming and I was like, oh, wow, like there's people here. And then there would be like a line of people trying to try on, but I mean, there's only one bathroom in the place. So I was still like, oh, okay. So that was fun. And I did that for over like a year and a half. But I was also found out I was pregnant right after I got back from market. For the first time. So I have a little boy, he's 7 now, but it was just like, this business has been one thing after another. It's quite shocking to say the least, but, did that. And then I just couldn't ever tap into the online aspect of it. Like I couldn't grow that way. I didn't understand how to. It's like we did the groups and we tried the lives, but it never took off the way that I wanted it to or hoped that it would. So at that point, I just kind of knew though that my heart was in a store. And so I made up my mind to go that route, which I mean, I love my stores. Like that's my heart, but growing online has been a challenge because it's still like, I can't quite wrap my head around how you go from point A to like point B. Like, how do you just like take off online and become like an online sensation overnight, which I know it doesn't really work that way, but I know it takes time, but the impatient side of things are like, okay, like I've done all the things I'm supposed to do. Like I'm doing this and this and this, like when is it going to happen? But I also believe you have to stay the course in things and like let things organically and naturally like grow.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you have a good strategy behind it, I think that's the key is it's, knowing that it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. It doesn't happen overnight.
So frustrating.
I get it. So what would you say is like really working well in the business right now?
Right now it is difficult to say because the economy has just been kind of down the drain. I think for us, what's been working is finding items that are at a really good price point. Remembering that like we're waking up every day and we have the opportunity to have return customers based on experience and service. And I think my big thing is like connection, like connecting with customers. And that even goes as far as like online. Like if we do mess something up, like we're calling you, you're going to hear our voice. You're going to hear us, be empathetic and say, we're sorry because we are sorry. Like we did mess up and we want you to know that you're talking to actual humans that do care. I feel like what is working for us though is our price point. It's being aware that people are struggling. So like, what can we do to wake up every day and compete with Amazon or compete with all these places from China? It's really hard. And it's not that that's what we want to do, but when most people are struggling right now, like that's where they're going because it makes the most sense for them. And just really honing in on customer experience. And that's been my big thing from day one is customer experience, but it makes such a big difference for people to come back and want to support you over and over again. And like, I can't be at both of my stores every day. And right now I've been tied to our warehouse because we've been getting ready for Black Friday. So it's knowing that the girls that work for me also share in that they want customer experience to be, next level. I don't care if you have $5 or $5 million, like you're going to get treated the same. We're going to help you the same. And that to me is probably the most important thing. And that continues to work, not just today, but that's going to work for the remainder of your business is how you treat the customer from the moment they walk in the door to the moment they walk out. So that's just what works for us and has worked. And hopefully will continue to work.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. Well, Jordan, it was so good having you here and getting to learn more about West of 55. We worked with you, but there's so many of these things that we don't like. It doesn't just come.
It was a great experience
together.
Josh's website designer is, oh my gosh, she blew me away. She was so good.
Good to hear.
She was awesome. And they were so sweet. They were all really sweet.
And for people that want to see your beautiful site or shop with you, follow you on social.
I love that. Yeah. West of55.com, and that's all spelled out. Our Instagram is at shopwaff, and that's WOFF. Sorry, it got stolen in January, so I have to remember which one I'm talking about. TikTok is the same. We don't post on that much. It's way over my head. And we have a Facebook group and a Facebook page. Just type in West of 55. I think we're the only West of 55 in the country, which is kind of fun.
That's awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Jordan, thank you for being here. And for those listening, thanks for tuning in. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, I hope that some of y'all come across our website. And thank you, Josh. I enjoyed it. It was fun.
So good to have you. Hey, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Retail Initiative Podcast. If you want more free resources, trainings, downloads, you can get those at madebycapital.com/podcast. Again, that's madebycapital.com/podcast. And for those of you that are serious and really want to take the success that you've built in your brick and mortar storefront and you want to create that same level of success online, I invite you to schedule a free call with me, at madebycapital.com/schedule, where we'll dig into your business, like where things are now, where you're wanting to go, getting really clear on your goals, and what are the 2 or 3 things that might be standing in the way of getting there. Now, look, if we're a good fit, I'd love to share what that looks like. And if not, my hope is that you leave with clarity on where to focus for you to reach your goals. So again, thanks for tuning in. And as always, leave a review, make sure you're subscribed, and I cannot wait to see you next time.